Episode 11 Soul Chasing Order 1 Big Brother. In the manager's office of the Copper Sparrow Pavilion, Aaron Jackson's face was alight with joy. His hands were constantly trembling, and his muscles were taut. 3 years. It's been hard work. Julius Reed sat on the sofa, silently lighting a cigarette. As the smoke slowly rose, he leaned on the sofa and asked, "The North City's Black Bear. Do you know him, Black Bear?" "I know." Aaron Jackson nodded. "He's a relative of Quince Kensington. These past few years I found him troublesome, so I didn't bother with him." "Big Brother, why suddenly bring him up today?" "Someone in the residential area tried to make a move on me." Julius Reed exhaled a puff of smoke and said indifferently, "The man behind it. It's Black Bear." What? Aaron Jackson's body abruptly shook. "Big Brother, you're not hurt, are you?" After speaking, he shook his head. "With your skills, how could he have harmed you? I don't want your sister in law to be disturbed." Julius Reed tossed his cigarette butt onto the ground and gently stamped it out. 3 years have passed. Hopefully, your sharp sword hasn't rusted." After saying this, he stood up and walked to the door. "Big Brother, let me accompany you." Aaron Jackson clenched his fists and strode over. "No need." Julius Reed, with his back to him, raised a hand. He strode away, just as he had arrived. While watching Julius Reed's receding figure, Aaron Jackson took a deep breath, his back already soaked. 3 years ago, after that incident, Julius Reed lost all his memories. To protect him, Aaron Jackson rushed to Gonzales City overnight, swearing to guard Julius Reed's safety with his life. Today, he finally waited for Julius Reed, this true dragon, to awaken. Dominating Tiger, Aaron Jackson bellowed. "Big Brother." The door was pushed open, and Dominating Tiger entered with a group of people. "Just now, today's events. I hope you all forget them," Aaron Jackson said coldly. "Understood," the crowd answered in unison. "Take your men and follow me to the North City." As Aaron Jackson spoke, a hint of murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Those who dared to touch Julius Reed must not be allowed to live. "Big Brother, let me handle this myself." Dominating Tiger, having followed Aaron Jackson for 3 years, naturally knew what the other intended to do. "This matter, I must handle personally." Aaron Jackson walked to the desk and took a card from the pen holder. Dominating Tiger's pupils contracted, a faint tremor in his heart. That card was called the Soul Chase Order, one of Aaron Jackson's ruthless methods, which hadn't been used in 2 years. Once the Soul Chase Order was issued, even if you fled to the ends of the earth, your life would still be taken. 3 years ago, when Aaron Jackson first arrived in Gonzales City, he used the Soul Chase Order to intimidate countless people. To date, 7 Soul Chase Orders had been issued, and among these 7 people, not one survived half a day. Gonzales City has perhaps been too peaceful for too long. Aaron Jackson put the Soul Chase Order into his jacket pocket and strode out of the office. Although Julius Reed didn't say much, his attitude was already quite clear. All those who tried to pose a threat to Quella Radcliffe must be erased from this world. "Brother Bear, I have to thank you for today's work inside the Shenshin Bar in the North City." Otis Radcliffe sat alongside a bald man. Even in daylight, the Shenshin Bar was still bustling with people. "Here's your fee. 200,000. Otis Radcliffe took out a card from his chest and gently pushed it towards the bald man. The bald man called Black Bear. He had another identity, one of Quince Kensington's assistants. It was precisely because he had Quince Kensington backing him that nobody ever dared to cause trouble in the Shenshin Bar. "Bro, you're being too polite. We're friends. No need for such formalities in the future." While he said this, Black Bear still grinned and stuffed the bank card into his pocket. "A strike worth 200,000 each time. This kind of deal is literally a pie falling from the sky. Even your sister has to be hit." Otis Radcliffe sure is ruthless. Black Bear truly looked down on Otis Radcliffe. But who would turn their back on money? "The mere mention of it makes me furious." With clenched teeth, Otis Radcliffe said, "That damn woman. And Julius Reed. They wouldn't ease my anger even if they were beaten to death." The matter of the board of directors was still fresh in his mind. And the fact that the lucrative position of project manager had been taken from him made him furiously embarrassed. "Brother Bear, Julius Reed's legs must be broken." "Don't worry." Black Bear lifted his cup leisurely and said, "The people I've sent out are all elites. Not just his legs. If you want his arms broken too, I can make it happen." "That's good." Thinking of Julius Reed, That whim. Begging for mercy on his knees lifts my spirits. Otis Radcliffe picked up the beer bottle on the table and downed it in one gulp. Bang. Just then, the private room door was kicked open. Black Bear instinctively stretched his hand under the table and pulled out a machete. But when he saw the face of the newcomer, his body twitched. Big brother, what's going on? Several subordinates rushed over from the entrance of Shenshin Bar. Scram. It's none of your business. After scolding his subordinates, Black Bear fawned over dominating Tiger. Aaron Martin, what wind has blown you here? Black Bear had never seen Aaron Jackson face to face before. He didn't even know his real name. But one thing he was sure of was that Aaron Jackson has massive power behind him. And since dominating Tiger was Aaron Jackson's right-hand man, he felt some fear at this moment. What wind? Dominating Tiger glanced at Otis Radcliffe beside him and said impatiently, Scram, how dare you talk like that? You dare act tough in front of Brother Bear? This was Black Bear's turf. So Otis Radcliffe was not scared. Who in Gonzales City would dare oppose him? Scram! Black Bear roared in anger. In front of dominating Tiger, he was less than nothing. Brother Bear, then I'll be going. Make sure you handle the task I entrusted to you swiftly. Seeing Black Bear speak up, Otis Radcliffe also stood up to leave. Even an idiot could see that the visitor was definitely a bigger deal than Black Bear. Otherwise, who would dare to speak to Black Bear like that? Isn't that asking for death? Wait, what task did you assign? A man dressed in white stepped out from the crowd. He blocked Otis Radcliffe's way and asked coldly, I'm telling you, this is Shenshin Bar. Can you afford to provoke us in Gonzales City? Nobody didn't fear Quince Kensington. Now, Otis Radcliffe used Quince Kensington to press them. And for good reason. Quince Kensington. Aaron Jackson sneered and pointed at Black Bear. Boy, asked him, does Quince Kensington dare not to give me face? Answer truthfully. Black Bear hung his head and didn't even dare to take a deep breath. In his heart, he already had a vague guess that the man might be the dreadful Aaron Jackson. Seeing this, Otis Radcliffe felt a wave of fear inside. The person who could scare Black Bear like this must be a big shot. There's just someone who doesn't know their place, and I asked Brother Bear to help me sort him out. He involuntarily stepped back a few paces, and his voice became much quieter. Sort out who? Aaron Jackson asked coldly. Dominating Tiger and Black Bear remained silent at the side, not uttering a single word. Even if Otis Radcliffe was an idiot, he now knew that the white-clad man before him was a tough character. At least, someone Black Bear feared was definitely someone he couldn't provoke. Someone from our Radcliffe family, a son-in-law, he replied in a low voice. Aaron Jackson's pupils constricted sharply, realizing that the one causing trouble for his big brother was someone from the Radcliffe family. Dragged him out, give him a beating with a wave of Aaron Jackson's hand. Several subordinates immediately dragged Otis Radcliffe out. In the end, since it was Quella Radcliffe's maternal family, how to deal with the situation would depend on Julius Reed's decision. Big brother, what brings you here? Black Bear felt like his sanity was on the verge of collapsing. To kill you with a light flick. Aaron Jackson sent the soul-chasing order flying from his fingers in an instant. Episode 12. Quella Radcliffe's craftsmanship. Mr. Aaron Jackson. The Black Bear thudded to his knees on the ground, his body trembling uncontrollably. He naturally understood what a soul-chasing order meant. Looking at the card on the ground that shimmered with silver light, the Black Bear's entire body was nearly convulsing. No one could survive the soul-chasing order. 3 years ago, Wesley Cook didn't escape. 3 years later, did he, the Black Bear, have any hope? Desperation and fear began to spread over him. The Black Bear bowed his head deeply, his body almost completely touching the floor. I don't want to kill you either. Aaron Jackson silently lit a cigarette and sighed. But, you've offended someone you shouldn't have. If Julius Reed asked Aaron Jackson to commit suicide, he would not hesitate to take his own life, let alone someone else. Who is it? Mr. Aaron Jackson. I've been law-abiding here. I've never offended anyone. The Black Bear suddenly raised his head, his eyes filled with panic. Crawling to Aaron Jackson's feet, he begged, Mr. Aaron Jackson, who have I offended? Can you tell me? People instinctively fear death when facing it. The Black Bear was no exception. Even now, he still fantasized about surviving the soul-chasing order. Some people, you're not worthy of knowing Mr. Aaron Jackson. The Black Bear's breathing became rapid. I beg you, for the sake of my older brother, give me a chance to live, he pleaded once again. The Black Bear's older brother was Theodore Kensington, the eldest son of the Kensington family. Even in Gonzales City, Theodore Kensington's name carried weight. The Kensington family was considered a powerful clan in the Five River Province, with dozens of martial arts schools and a host of other businesses. By virtue of this relationship, the Black Bear reigned in the north of the city. For years, only the Black Bear remained unscathed. Behind this, it was because of Theodore Kensington. Now, the Black Bear brought up Theodore Kensington, clearly intending to intimidate Aaron Jackson. After all, he considered Aaron Jackson to be nothing compared to Theodore Kensington. But what he didn't know was that behind Aaron Jackson stood a behemoth. "Are you threatening me?" Aaron Jackson flicked his cigarette butt lightly, looking at the Black Bear with interest. Back then, he didn't take out the Black Bear only because he wanted to avoid trouble and not affect his mission to protect Julius Reed. After all, there would have been some trouble to deal with. But now that Julius Reed had come to his senses, he could act freely. Theodore Kensington? Compared to the 10,000 Mountain Alliance, he's nothing. I naturally wouldn't dare, sir. I'm just asking you to be merciful and spare my life. From now on, whether it's climbing a mountain of swords or descending into a sea of flames, the Black Bear will surely not hesitate to die. Of course, the Black Bear was threatening, but he could never say that out loud. Face was more important than life. If Aaron Jackson were wise, he certainly wouldn't offend the monster that is Theodore Kensington. The person you've offended. Even Theodore Kensington wouldn't dare to provoke bang. Aaron Jackson suddenly pulled the trigger. With the sound of a gunshot, a blood hole appeared in the Black Bear's forehead, blood continuously flowing out. In his eyes, there was still a residual look of smug satisfaction. By the time Julius Reed got home, Quella Radcliffe had already prepared a table full of dishes. As soon as he entered the house, he felt something was off. Because the three of them were sitting at the table, but not a bite of food had been touched. His mother-in-law and father-in-law were sitting with stern faces, not even looking at him. "You're back," Quella Radcliffe waved at him. "Come and try my cooking." Ever since Julius Reed became part of the family through marriage, the cooking had fallen to him, and Quella Radcliffe had never once stepped foot in the kitchen. Today was supposed to be the first time since the wedding. Great Julius Reed smiled as he took his seat at the dining table, apologizing slightly. Something came up in the middle, causing a bit of a delay. He had intended to deal with a few hooligans. Little did he know it would lead to so many people getting involved. HMPH. "Julius, did you go out just to come back with an attitude?" Knox Ridge finally couldn't continue pretending. She turned around to face Julius Reed, her anger boiling over as she yelled, "I'm almost starving to death here. Weren't you supposed to go grocery shopping? Did you go to buy ginseng or deer antlers instead? Now you can't even cook a proper meal. I warn you, don't think just because Quella Radcliffe got the position of project manager, you can ride on her coattails exactly. If it weren't for you holding her back, our daughter would have been successful a long time ago. I warn you, if you don't cook on time from now on, you can just get out of this house." Belle Radcliffe was also slamming the table beside her. This kind of thing had happened often in the past 3 years, and Julius Reed had grown accustomed to it. "Mom and Dad, there must be a reason for 12. How can you be so unreasonable?" Quella Radcliffe wanted to tell her parents that Sky Reed and Julius Reed were classmates, but Julius had forbidden her from mentioning it, so she had to keep it to herself. If it wasn't for that connection, how could she have possibly pushed past Otis Radcliffe to land the project manager position? Why are you always taking his side? Quella Radcliffe, I warn you, sooner or later, that loser will divorce you, and you better recognize that. Knox Ridge angrily picked up her chopsticks and started eating. 2. What is this? Is it even edible? She spat out a mouthful of sauerkraut fish onto the floor as soon as she tasted it. Too sour and astringent. It was truly hard to swallow. Such bad luck. You disaster. Knox Ridge was already in a bad mood, and now with Quella Radcliffe's long absence from the kitchen, resulting in a particularly terrible meal, her rage exploded in an instant. But in the end, it was her own daughter's cooking, so she had no choice but to direct her anger at Julius Reed, the outsider. It's all your fault. Belle Radcliffe, who was already henpecked, had no appetite now that his wife was angry, so after scolding Julius Reed a few times, he too retreated back to his room. I'm sorry, my parents, they... Quella Radcliffe felt quite helpless, and let out a deep sigh. looking somewhat deflated. It's okay, Julius Reed smiled faintly and began to eat. Hey, it's so bad. Don't eat it. Quella Radcliffe felt a bit awkward. Even she didn't dare to eat after she had finished cooking. It was too awful. How could I not? Whatever my wife cooks is the best. Julius Reed, having swallowed a few bites, eventually couldn't bear it any longer. Let's just go out to eat, Quella Radcliffe suddenly suggested. Sure. Julius Reed put down his chopsticks, looking at Quella Radcliffe with a face full of happiness. The couple had been married for 3 years, yet they had never dined out together. But what about my parents? Julius Reed was genuinely troubled. If Knox Ridge found out about them going out to eat, it would surely result in a fierce scolding. We'll just bring something back for them. Quella Radcliffe winked and got up to pack things. Where's your necklace? When Julius Reed stood up, he suddenly noticed that the necklace around Quella Radcliffe's neck was missing. My mother. Quella Radcliffe took a deep breath, looking down as she said, I don't know who told her, but when she came back, she took Dawn's light from me. You know how she is. When she makes a scene, I can't do anything. As she spoke, Quella Radcliffe's voice became softer and weaker, until it was barely a whisper at the end. Never mind. Let's go out for dinner, Julius Reed said, comforting her with a smile. But the moment he turned around, a chill flashed in his eyes. Dawn's light was a gift he had given Quella Radcliffe, and besides her, no one else had any right to wear it. That materialistic mother-in-law of his would definitely wear it to show off to others. Get 2 people to retrieve Dawn's light for me. As Quella Radcliffe was busy packing, he sent a message to Aaron Jackson via WeChat. Episode 13 membership card. Before they even got to go downstairs, Quella Radcliffe received a call from Zaid Radcliffe. It was about the new person in charge taking office and the need to invite all the employees out for a meal. This was considered a tradition at Radcliffe Group. Quella Radcliffe had planned to treat the employees on Friday night, but Zaid Radcliffe called ahead of the schedule. The venue had already been chosen. Azure Percival Hotel, one of the top hotels in Gonzales City. Of course, the company would foot the bill. It seems that we will have to join everyone for the meal. When they reached the downstairs, Quella Radcliffe told Julius Reed about it. Originally, this was to be the first time the two dined out together, but now it was instantly disrupted. This call came out of nowhere, with even the location pre-selected. Julius Reed's brow furrowed slightly, feeling that there was more to it than meets the eye. The person least pleased about Quella Radcliffe becoming the project manager was surely Otis Radcliffe, and the second most displeased had to be Zaid Radcliffe. Now Zaid Radcliffe had even chosen the restaurant for them. Why did it smell like a weasel paying a New Year's call to a chicken? He knew about Azure Percival, one of the largest hotels in Gonzales City. Usually, when the group went out for meals, it was to regular restaurants. So why was Zaid Radcliffe being so generous this time? If it were because of the position as project manager, that Zaid Radcliffe had a change of attitude towards Quella Radcliffe. Julius Reed didn't buy it. There is something fishy going on when there's an anomaly. After all, he is my grandfather. I know they always gave you a hard time, but from now on, I'll protect you. In the end, we are family. Let's not get too stiff with each other. Quella Radcliffe pouted slightly and said with a touch of coquetry, family. The word carried a special significance when it reached Julius Reed's ears. Quella Radcliffe was finally starting to accept him. But did those people even deserve to become his family? If it weren't for Quella Radcliffe's sake, Otis Radcliffe might already be dead in a bar. However, some thoughts he ultimately kept to himself. After getting into the car, the two drove the Rolls-Royce towards the Azure Percival. But when they arrived, they found that many Radcliffe Group employees were already waiting at the hotel entrance. Damn. Isn't that the Rolls-Royce Sky Reed had this morning? How come Quella Radcliffe is sitting inside? Do we even need to say it? This morning when Quella Radcliffe had the Dawn's light, I guessed she had someone outside. Could it be with Sky Reed? No wonder at today's board meeting, he insisted on selecting Quella Radcliffe as the project manager. Seeing the two alight from the Rolls-Royce, everyone started to buzz with speculation. Julius Reed, that loser, is bound to be cuckolded sooner or later. Exactly. I didn't expect this day to come so soon. I used to think Quella Radcliffe was a decent person, but now it turns out she's nothing but a floozy inside the Radcliffe Group. Many people were dissatisfied with Quella Radcliffe. The reason was simple. They were all supporters of Otis Radcliffe. and naturally unhappy when their interests were affected. Haha, I knew this floozy suddenly rose to the top. Otis Radcliffe sneered incessantly to one side. His head was wrapped in a bandage, his mouth stitched up, and his face was battered, blue and purple. President Radcliffe, what happened to you? Many employees expressed their concern. Otis Radcliffe was fine in the morning. So how did he end up looking like this by the afternoon? Just had a little fall, Otis Radcliffe said with an awkward smile, his eyes filled with a colder intent. He had not even left the bar in the afternoon before he was severely beaten. Those people had even warned him not to trouble Quella Radcliffe in the future. So subconsciously, Otis Radcliffe held a grudge against Quella Radcliffe. Today was the birthday of Jackson Brandon, the young master of the Brandon family in Gonzales City. Because the Brandon family had a substantial reputation in Gonzales City as a first-rate wealthy family. Therefore, Jackson Brandon booked the entire Azure Percival to celebrate with his friends. After Otis Radcliffe got wind of this through Calvin Leopold, he planned to purposely make things difficult for Quella Radcliffe. He had Zaid Radcliffe notify Radcliffe Group employees in advance that Quella Radcliffe, having been promoted to project manager, would host them at the Azure Percival. If they ended up facing a situation with no seats available, it would surely breed resentment among the employees. Then, when Zaid Radcliffe reported back to Titan Group, even if Sky Reed and Quella Radcliffe were having an affair, it wouldn't save her position as project manager. Otis, what happened to you when they reached the entrance? Quella Radcliffe looked at her brother in disbelief. Just a little tumble. It's nothing. Otis Radcliffe's smile deepened, knowing his plan was about to succeed. Could it be for doing too many wrongs that you got beaten? Julius Reed smiled faintly, his eyes brimming with mockery. If it hadn't been for Quella Radcliffe's face, Otis Radcliffe might already be floating in the river by now. Julius. Quella Radcliffe held his hand, signaling him not to go on. She could see those obvious signs of assault, but in front of so many people, she still needed to give Otis some dignity. President Radcliffe, why did you only just arrive? We are nearly starved to death. Employees crowded around. After Quella Radcliffe was promoted to project leader, even though they were unconvinced, they still had to address her as President Radcliffe. This made Otis Radcliffe feel even more imbalanced inside. Don't worry, Calvin Leopold, seeing his dissatisfaction, muttered softly at his side. Let's see how she handles the employees' anger in a bit. Otis Radcliffe nodded, cursing continuously in his heart. Sorry to keep everyone waiting, Quella Radcliffe said, slightly apologetic. She had rushed over here after receiving a call from her grandfather. But why did it seem like these employees had been waiting for a long time? We received a call from the chairman at 3, saying that you would treat us. But now it's already 4:30. A member of the Radcliffe clan pointed at his watch and said, 3 o'clock. Julius Reed furrowed his brows, wondering how they were not informed about this. Logically, shouldn't Quella Radcliffe have been notified immediately? But when the two of them received the call, it was already 4:05, a full hour and 5 minutes later than everyone else. Was your phone turned off? Julius Reed looked at Quella Radcliffe beside him, sensing that something was amiss. No way. Quella Radcliffe hadn't thought that much about it. She walked into the hotel with the employees and said apologetically, I'm sorry for the long wait. Everyone, no worries. We should thank President Radcliffe. We normally wouldn't dare to come to a place like this. Exactly. This is one of Gonzales City's top restaurants. If not for your auspicious promotion, who knows when we would have the chance to eat here. Once inside the hotel, the employees began looking around curiously. Azure Percival was well known, and many were visiting it for the first time. They knew of the hotel by name, but it certainly wasn't a place for ordinary people to patronize. So, hearing that they were going to dine in Azure Percival, many had dressed up carefully in advance, planning to take photos for their social circle. Dining here with so many people would probably cost hundreds of thousands. However, Zaid Radcliffe had said over the phone that the company would cover this expense. Hello, we have a total of 21 people, Quella Radcliffe said to the receptionist. Today, it was the junior managers and above, along with the Radcliffe clan, who had come. In essence, these were the core forces of the Radcliffe group. Sorry, but Mr. Brandon has booked the entire first floor, and there are no seats available, the receptionist said, pointing at the noisy group of youths nearby with a light smile. What about other places? Quella Radcliffe inquired, getting a bad premonition as she looked at the group on the first floor. There is a VIP box available, but it requires a membership card. The receptionist responded with a smile, asking, "Are you a member by any chance?" "I'm not yet. But how does one apply for membership?" Quella Radcliffe breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that at least they could dine here. A membership card requires an annual spend of 5 million yuan. "Would you like to apply for one?" the receptionist replied. How much? Quella Radcliffe was somewhat stunned at the 5 million figure. Where could she possibly find so much money at a moment's notice? "You need to have spent 5 million to become a member," the receptionist explained with a smile. "Damn. That's outrageous," the employees complained, dissatisfied. "Sorry. How about we go somewhere else?" Quella Radcliffe suggested apologetically to the employees. Even though she knew Azure Percival was a high-end establishment, she hadn't expected the membership threshold to be so high. "President Radcliffe, are you toying with us by dragging us all the way out here on purpose?" "Exactly. If it wasn't for Azure Percival, I wouldn't even bother coming. If you can't deliver, then don't talk big." The employees were quite discontent, and many unpleasant words were spoken directly. They were already unhappy about Quella Radcliffe's appointment as project leader. With this incident now, those who were envious began to mock and jeer. President Radcliffe didn't know. Give her a break. Otis Radcliffe was inwardly pleased, but he tried to mediate on the surface. "What a letdown. Are we a joke to you? Forget it. I am already full from anger. Waited more than an hour, just to be told to change locations." Many people had already turned to leave. "I am really sorry. I apologize to everyone," Quella Radcliffe said, looking somewhat helpless. "I have a card. Maybe it will work," said Julius Reed, who had been silent all this while, suddenly speaking up. Episode 14, Imperial Hall. "Damn it, Julius Reed. Can you stop making a scene? A guy living off his wife. And you even dare to show up at Azure Percival?" "Exactly. Have you even eaten out in the past 3 years? Let alone spending 5 million. You probably haven't even spent $500 in these 3 years. He really has the nerve to eat everywhere. This is not your house." You know, quite a few members of the Radcliffe clan began to mock him coldly and sarcastically. To these people, Julius Reed was nothing but a loser. Even if he was Quella Radcliffe's husband, he would not gain an ounce of respect. The employees of Radcliffe Group also cast mocking glances at him, though they didn't say anything. After all, even if he was a dog belonging to the Radcliffe family, it wasn't their place as outsiders to gossip. It's best to just quietly enjoy the show. "Julius, let it go. Let's go to another place." Quella Radcliffe turned around, full of apologies, and said to the Radcliffe clan and the employees, "I'm so sorry for today. It's my first time here and I wasn't aware of the rules. My apologies." She thought Julius Reed was trying to extricate himself. After all, it required a spend of 5 million. A full 5 million. These people were right. Julius Reed hadn't eaten out in 3 years. Where would he get a VIP card from? What a letdown. He's not even in charge yet and he's already making fools of us. If he actually takes the position of project manager, I'm afraid it would be unbearable. We came all this way only to get no meal. Let's go home. Back home, the Radcliffe clan members completely lost their cool. Some of them had known the ins and outs of the matter all along, so they acted with extra gusto. "President Radcliffe, if that's the case, we'll be taking our leave. We've come all this way and haven't had a meal. We need to go back and eat something. If we don't find something to eat ourselves, we might starve to death." Under the instigation of the Radcliffe clan members, the Radcliffe Group employees also began to complain. They were not informed. Many were jubilant about coming here and had even dressed up for the occasion. Who knew that they wouldn't even see a table, or even get through the door? This severe disparity intensified their dissatisfaction. "Hey, wait a minute. Didn't Julius Reed say he has a card? Let's try it. What if our Radcliffe son-in-law really has the capability? After all, living off a woman is also a skill in getting food, isn't it?" Otis Radcliffe took the opportunity to sneer. He seldom got the chance to make Julius Reed look foolish and was certainly not about to let it slip by. Spending 5 million a year at Azure Percival was something even he couldn't afford to do, let alone penniless Julius Reed. "Let's go to another place." Quella Radcliffe's expression darkened and she turned to leave the hotel. From the beginning to this point, she had also sensed that something was not quite right. It was as if everything had been a well-designed trap. just waiting for her to fall into it. Don't go. Otis Radcliffe stood in front of Quella Radcliffe with a derisive tone. You have a card, yet you won't let him use it. Are you intentionally playing with us? Otis Radcliffe was particularly obsessed with kicking someone when they were down. Quella Radcliffe was so angry she was red in the face. Where would Julius Reed get such a card from? Otis Radcliffe's actions were clearly intended to make them look bad. If it had been before, Quella Radcliffe might not have cared. But now her feelings for Julius Reed had drastically changed. How could she let him be humiliated by others? Just for that brother-in-law you called me. I can't let you down today. Julius Reed smiled faintly and pulled out a black card from his pocket. 3 years. Otis Radcliffe always called him useless or trash. Today was the first time he called him brother-in-law. Of course. This was also to humiliate him. Seeing Julius Reed pull out a card, everyone's hearts tightened. Could it be that he really had a membership card? But then they thought about it. How could that be possible? They figured he was just brazenly showing some random card that couldn't be used. Julius Reed. Oh Julius Reed, your status in our Radcliffe family is not even as good as a dog that the old man keeps. Otis Radcliffe sneered inwardly. Brother-in-law, it's not like you picked up some random business card on the street and are trying to bluff us. Right? Provoked by his comment, the others who were momentarily stunned also started to regain their senses. Damn. I actually believed him for a second. Thinking this loser could actually produce a card. Wellington Radcliffe cursed loudly on the side. Among the Radcliffe siblings, Wellington had the worst manners, always calling Julius Reed trash whenever he opened his mouth. Stop fucking pretending and get lost. He walked up to the reception desk, cursing under his breath. Everyone only saw Julius Reed pull out a black card, but they didn't see clearly what card it was. Provoked by Otis Radcliffe and Wellington Radcliffe, everyone assumed it was just some business card off the street. With that thought, their anger grew even more. Sir, this is a bank card, the front desk staff answered with a smile. He had thought the customer really had a card, but when he took it, he realized it wasn't a VIP card at all. It was a black bank card. Fuck. Julius Reed, you and your wife are really something. Treating us like monkeys. Playing us for fools. Members of the Radcliffe clan were hopping mad. You fucking idiot. Are you trying to make a fool out of me? Wellington walked up to Julius Reed, about to push him. In his eyes, Julius Reed was less than a dog. Wellington, he's your brother-in-law. Quella Radcliffe stepped in front of Julius Reed and scolded sternly. Don't go too far. He's part of the Radcliffe family too. With her defense like that, the employees of Radcliffe Group were not going to stand down. President Radcliffe, it's one thing for you to play us, but why should he? Bringing a bank card to pose as a VIP card. Do you think we're idiots? We will report to the chairman that this lack of respect for staff doesn't qualify you to lead the new project. Several employees of Radcliffe Group started pulling out their phones, ready to call Zaid Radcliffe. Sister, you're the one in the wrong here. Otis Radcliffe was already overjoyed inside. His goal finally achieved. Once Quella had incurred the wrath of everyone, the position would surely be his. He would take his time tormenting Quella, even get her fired from the group. Julius Reed, I really owe you one. Without him stirring things up, the employees wouldn't have been so outraged. But Julius Reed ignored all that and said to the front desk staff softly, there are some things you're not qualified to know. Now call your manager. At his words, the staff member indeed hesitated. Despite how things looked, he guessed that the guy was someone without much clout. But what if he really was a hidden big shot? He could be risking his job. The call hadn't lasted a minute when a chubby man came running down from upstairs. At this moment, the Radcliffes were cursing and Quella was arguing with them. So the chubby man became extremely serious as soon as he got the black card. Will this do? Julius Reed tapped on the reception desk lightly. The significance of this card, no one understood better than him. Look, he's still putting on an act. Disgusting. Let's go. Haven't even had our meal, and we're already full of anger. Quite a few people were already preparing to leave. Sir, with this card, you may directly enter our most esteemed Emperor's Hall. The chubby man respectfully returned the card to Julius Reed. What? Am I hearing this right? A Radcliffe family member standing closest to him furrowed his brows. Server, arrange for someone to escort this gentleman to the top floor Emperor's Hall. With a wave of his hand, the chubby man turned around with a beaming smile and said, my name's Tobias Percival. the manager of this establishment. If you need anything, feel free to ask for me. This statement made the Radcliffes explode in astonishment. Fuck. What's going on? A bank card can do the trick. Quella was also bewildered. She moved closer to Julius Reed and asked softly, "What's happening?" Sky Reed lent it to me last time. "We're relatives. You know," Julius Reed replied with a light smile. "Oh my. Emperor's Hall. Incredible. Long live President Radcliffe." "This is too extravagant." The employees became excited again, gathering around Julius Reed, ready to follow him upstairs. "Wellington, you deal with it yourself. The rest of you, follow me." Julius Reed looked at Wellington Radcliffe with a face full of mockery. "You loser. I swear I'm not a man if I don't get back at you for this." After everyone left, Wellington stood shaking with rage at the entrance of the hotel. Episode 15. Tess Radcliffe is driven out. Not long after everyone settled down, Tess Radcliffe arrived as well. She naturally knew about the event, so she never intended to make a wasted trip. But what she didn't expect was that Julius Reed somehow obtained a card. He could actually dine at Azure Percival, and it was even in the Imperial Hall. After getting the news, the vain Tess Radcliffe hurried over by taxi. She had eaten at Azure Percival a few times, but always in the main hall. As for the Imperial Hall, she really wanted to see what it was like. As soon as Tess Radcliffe reached the hotel entrance, she saw Otis Radcliffe, Wellington Radcliffe, and Calvin Leopold discussing something at the door. Wellington Radcliffe's face was flushed red, looking very angry. "This son of a bitch needs to be taught a lesson. Even daring to mess with me." The more he spoke, the angrier he got. As a grandson of the Radcliffe family, the old man's doting on Wellington Radcliffe was no less than on Otis. Wellington Radcliffe had everything handed to him at home, and everyone had to give way to him. Having been snubbed by Julius Reed today, his rage was understandable. You should know that Wellington Radcliffe never had much respect for his brother-in-law. "What are you three doing?" Swinging her hips, Tess Radcliffe approached with her bag in hand. "That old bastard Julius Reed won't let me in to eat. He's obviously trying to humiliate me." Wellington Radcliffe bit his teeth, his breathing growing more rapid. He looked at Tess Radcliffe and Calvin Leopold, saying, "Sister, brother-in-law, you have to stand up for me." The thought that everyone else could enter and only he could not. Wellington Radcliffe felt more and more aggrieved. "All right." Calvin Leopold patted his shoulder, consoling. "Leave this to your brother-in-law. Silas Cook and I have a bit of a relationship. Jackson Brandon has booked the place today, and I heard about it through Silas. I didn't expect that son of a bitch Julius Reed to come up with a card from somewhere, ruining our good plan." "Silas Cook? Is it the Silas Cook from Sky Victory Bar?" A glint appeared in Wellington Radcliffe's eyes. Naturally, he had heard of Silas Cook, who was somewhat famous in Gonzales City. Now that he could sit and drink with Jackson Brandon, it was clear he had a lot of clout. Sky Victory Bar was owned by Aaron Jackson, and Silas Cook was in charge of overseeing it. "That's right, the same Silas Cook. My dad opened an entertainment complex these past few years, so Silas and I are somewhat acquainted too. In a bit, I'll have a word with him, and we'll find an opportunity to take care of that son of a bitch." Julius Reed. A smug look crossed Calvin Leopold's face. "Brother-in-law, you're something else. Even knowing Silas Cook. We're counting on you today." Envy-colored Otis Radcliffe's face from the side. Although he was the general manager of Radcliffe Group, when it came to these societal figures, he only knew Black Bear from the north of the city. Black Bear worked for money. It didn't matter who you were, as long as you paid. But Silas Cook was different. He was particularly upstanding and had a strong sense of brotherhood. "Brother-in-law, I'll bankroll tonight's meal to treat you." And Silas Wellington Radcliffe's mood brightened, his expression lively in a flash. "You two go ahead and get inside to avoid any suspicion. I'll go talk to Silas Cook." After saying that, Calvin Leopold turned and headed towards the main hall on the first floor. By the time Tess Radcliffe entered the private room, everyone was already seated. The Imperial Hall was quite spacious, with ceilings over 5 meters high, covered in crystal chandeliers. The entire room was bigger than the Radcliffe Group's conference room and came with 13 dedicated waitstaff. The employees took out their phones one by one, showing off pictures in their friend circles. You should know that being able to dine at Azure Percival was already a great honor, let alone in the Imperial Hall. "Oh, my dear sister." As she entered the room, Tess Radcliffe rushed over to Quella Radcliffe, I really didn't expect you to be so capable. You know, even our father has never dined in this imperial hall. She looked around, shaking her head and remarking, TSK, TSK, TSK. Quite impressive indeed. It's Julius's friend. We got a card from him. That's how we could get in. Quella Radcliffe replied with a smile. Really? I didn't expect Julius to be so capable. A trace of disdain flashed across Tess Radcliffe's face, as she had already concluded that Quella Radcliffe and Sky Reed were involved, and she even felt a bit of sympathy for Julius. But to be honest, she was a little envious. Although Calvin Leopold's family was wealthy, Sky Reed was young and promising with limitless potential. Hey, waiter, add a chair for me. Seeing that the seats were just enough, Tess Radcliffe, with her hands on her hips, approached an employee of the Radcliffe Group. Stand up for a moment. You can sit down again after the chair is added. The employee's name was Blossom Reed, a customer service manager at the Radcliffe Group. Among the employees present today, she was the closest to Quella Radcliffe. So, Tess Radcliffe's action was quite like killing the chicken to scare the monkey. Although Blossom Reed was extremely reluctant inside, she simply couldn't afford to offend Tess Radcliffe, who was notoriously difficult to deal with. Hurry up! Tess Radcliffe was getting impatient, and she simply pushed Blossom Reed to the side. The rest of the employees were dissatisfied, but not one dared to stand up. Wait a minute. Just then, Julius stood up and looked at Tess Radcliffe, grinning. Sis, the seats were booked by Quella Radcliffe, and since you didn't show up at the time, we didn't reserve one for you. Julius, what do you mean? Tess Radcliffe frowned, looking at Julius. The seats, they were already booked. Blossom Reed's seat. No one can bully their way into it. Julius met Tess Radcliffe's gaze unflinchingly. Well, I'm taking it today. What are you going to do about it? Tess Radcliffe became unstoppable when her fiery temper flared up. Get lost! She pushed Blossom Reed to the ground and sat down on the chair with a swagger, cursing continuously. There, I'm sitting. What are you going to do about it? People don't even realize when they are being spineless. As soon as these words came out, everyone looked at Quella Radcliffe with weird glances. Some things they had only guessed in their hearts, but when Tess Radcliffe spoke them out loud, it was obviously different. Sis, watch your words. Quella Radcliffe wasn't a fool. How could she not understand what Tess Radcliffe was implying? If you don't want others to know, don't do it at all. Tess Radcliffe gave a cold snort, speaking in a sarcastic tone. If you did it, don't be afraid of people talking you in front of so many company people. Quella Radcliffe was so angry her teeth itched. Just then, her hand was suddenly gripped by someone. I'll handle this. Julius smiled faintly. He turned to the waiter at the door. There is someone causing trouble here. Please deal with it. Yes, Mr. Reed. The waiters nodded and quickly approached Tess Radcliffe. Mom, please leave, damn it. I want to see who dares to kick me out. Do you know who I am? I'm her big sister. Tess Radcliffe pointed at Quella Radcliffe, impatiently yelling at the waiters. Get lost. Our family's matters are none of your business. Being used to bossing people around on a daily basis, she didn't show any courtesy to these waiters. But this was Azure Percival, not an ordinary restaurant. Causing a scene here, a few waiters sneered, dragging her out one on each side. What are you doing? Get your dirty hands off me. A bunch of lousy workers, daring to offend me. I'll go talk to your manager. Tess Radcliffe shouted loudly, but the waiters, as if they hadn't heard, dragged her outside and then pushed her down the stairs.